Welcome back to Talk of the Town. And on the line, we do have an American girl, as you heard the Tom Petty bringing us in. Very excited to have Ann Coulter on with us from the left coast. So good morning, Ann, and thanks for being on Talk of the Town.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you again, Doug.
Yes, it has been many, many years. I thought it might be fun to listen to some of our old conversations, but we couldn't find a cassette player anywhere. That's how long it's been.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh, my gosh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I bet you would. That's what you've been waiting to hear. Well, let's get into, back in the old days when you and I were talking, it was impeachment time and blue dresses and all sorts of interesting things we were talking about. Now it's Trump time, as they call it. You've been an outspoken supporter. I told you my good friend and person who normally occupies this chair, Henry Hinton, has been a little critical of the Donald and his campaign and a little mystified by the reaction of the electorate toward him. Just kind of give the folks, I think most folks know you, know your politics. Why have you come out so strongly and supported Donald Trump?
Well, you have to read my book to understand everything that's going on. Adios, America. The left's plan to turn our country into a third world hellhole. And incidentally, North Carolina features quite prominently in it. You got a lot of farmers and growers who love that cheap, illegal, or legal Mexican labor and don't care how many little girls have to be raped to save them some money and make profits for themselves. I mean, I warned about it in my book that the powers that be, the rich, the donors, the Republicans who accept their money, and the Democrats who want their votes, and, of course, the left-wing media that just hates America and wants to transform it, would not talk about immigration. You bring up immigration, they cut to a commercial break on television. You have both liberal television networks and conservative television networks 100% in the tank for open borders. That is what we're up against. And I think it took an eccentric billionaire to come along and say, can we care about Americans first? How about the people who already live here?
Right.
These are the ones we're supposed to be taking care of. He's the first one who puts America first I've seen since Reagan. And the attacks on him, I mean, look, I don't like the gold fixtures either. I never imagined it would take Donald Trump, but when I look back at the attacks he's come under, the absolutely consistent, universal attacks on him and lies like I haven't seen since the Clinton era, I try to imagine Romney saying the same thing, right? Because for any of you listening who are not already on the Trump train, at least if you would ever vote Republican in your entire lives anyway, I suspect what you're thinking is, why couldn't we have someone elegant like Romney? Romney was elegant, and I was completely for him. And by the way, of the available choices back then, Romney was the best on immigration. That's why I supported him. He was at least for self-deportation. The rest of them just want to throw open the borders and bring in the cheap labor. But I'm trying to imagine Romney withstanding the attacks Trump has come under, and you begin to realize that the only person who could have done this is this billionaire reality TV New York City developer. I like his other positions, but immigration is everything. That does determine whether we can remain the United States of America, and then we can argue about everything else. You know, we've always had this yin and yang in American politics, where it would swing way to the left, the country would nearly be wrecked, and then there would be, the right-wing pushback. With Nixon after Great Society programs, with Reagan after Jimmy Carter, with the 1994 Congress after the first 2 years of Clinton. Well, the reason we're not having a pushback now isn't because liberals are so clever and they've changed people's minds and their arguments are so good. No, they changed the voters. They brought in 40 million third worlders to block vote for the Democrats, and that is exactly what they're doing. 80% of all immigrants since 1970, and obviously I'm talking about legal immigrants here because otherwise they wouldn't be able to vote, 80% vote for the Democrats.
Right.
But that's why the Democrats want them. It's wrecking your country. If the most important issue to you is abortion, is tax cuts, is school choice, you're gonna lose unless you stop being outvoted by the ringers the Democrats are bringing in. This is why Trump is the only hope for America right now.
We're talking with Ann Coulter, and we're hoping that we can prod her into coming out of her shell a little bit and be a little bit more opinionated on the issue of Trump. Obviously, immigration, your key issue. Let me ask you this. What do you say to the folks that are up in arms and saying, if Donald Trump gets the nomination, and we'll talk about some of the possible scenarios as we head to a convention before we're done, but if he were to get the nomination, this phrase you keep hearing, it will be the end of the Republican Party. Number one, is that true? And number two, would it be such a bad thing that the Republican Party might have a split?
Well, it would just hasten the end of the country a little bit faster. But no, to the contrary, if Trump does not get the nomination, and this isn't, that's the end of the Republican Party. And I'm not saying that in an angry, I'll never vote for the Republican way. Look, I'm going to vote for the Republican. I even voted for John McCain, but I'm not millions of voters. The idea that Donald Trump can keep winning these, both the two columns I'd recommend on the electoral prospects with Trump are this week's column and one from either last week or the week before. This week is Ted Cruz, Tracy Flick with a rhymes with Flick. That's from the movie Election. And that's how, Trump keeps hitting these grand slams. And then Ted Cruz, the little nerdy guy, and I don't dislike Ted Cruz. I haven't attacked him for a lot of things a lot of anti-Cruz people have attacked him for. I don't believe the National Enquirer story, don't get me wrong. But he was born in Canada. He's not a natural-born citizen. I also have a column very clearly and citing the Supreme Court cases, absolutely no question. It's not a gray area. The Supreme Court has decided it half a dozen times. He may have been a citizen the moment he was born, but that does not make him a natural-born citizen under the Constitution. That's a term of art that goes back to Calvin's case 400 years ago under British common law, and it's been incorporated into our Constitution. This week, this business about the rules, and this is what the rules are. This is my objection to Ted Cruz right now. He's not very likable. There's not one state Romney lost that Ted Cruz is going to flip. He's Mitt Romney with a less attractive face. And he keeps going around winning these nerdy backroom deals, cajoling. He is Tracy Flick in the election. And Trump comes along. Nearly every time there's a primary, Trump wins. The only primaries, i.e. elections, not caucuses, which are getting a little bit closer. Certainly not just a meeting of the local GOP. Trump keeps winning huge in Florida, in Massachusetts, in South Carolina, in North Carolina. He wins elections, and think about this, Republicans. How is the general election run? Is it a little meeting of the Colorado Republican Party? Is that how it happens? You think you're going to get past Hillary Clinton with that? No, it is massive numbers of votes. Only Trump can do it. And the other column, it's only Trump from 2 weeks ago. I go through state by state which states Trump at least has a shot of taking that no other Republican has a shot of taking and that Romney lost. What you'll hear, which is which is idiotic, but the establishment has gotten very good at lying, and that is, Romney already got every last white vote. There are no more white people to vote for him. Well, that's because his idiot campaign strategist, Stuart Stephen, keeps talking about the national white vote. In lovely states like Alabama, something like 80% of white people voted for Trump, or rather for Romney. In Mississippi, it was higher than 80%. I think it was like 85% of white people voted for, white voters voted for Romney the last time around. Meanwhile, Romney actually lost the white vote to Obama in a half dozen crucial swing states. He either lost the white vote or did not come close to his national average. Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, New Hampshire, Maine. Maine, by the way, went for Ross Perot, and I'm not even including Florida, and I have a number of paths to victory. I don't see Trump losing any states Romney won, but I see a lot of states he could well take by activating the white working class. There's no other Republican who could, I think, possibly beat Hillary.
The columns that Ann's mentioning are on AnnCoulter.com if you want to go there, and you could also get a copy of her latest book, Adios America, where, as she said, she kind of foresaw some of this coming. Now, you mentioned...
You read my book.
No, I didn't read your book, but
No,
I've read...
Trump read my book,
enough.
you idiot.
Listen.
I'm telling you, Donald Trump read my book. That's where he got all that great stuff about Mexican rapists.
Well, you want me to be a typical politician and lie to you? I've read excerpts from your book.
I didn't say you read my book. I said he read my book.
Oh, Trump
I'm
did?
referring to the next president of the United States.
Well, I am sorry. My faux pas. You mentioned being on the Trump train. How early did, very early on, the so-called experts were saying, oh, this is people's fascination with a reality TV star. This will be a passing fad. And as the field gets whittled down, he'll go away. How early did you realize that Donald Trump was for real? And in your mind, Donald Trump was the answer for the Republican Party?
A week after the Mexican rapist speech. I just wanted to make sure he wouldn't back down, which sounds hilarious now, but I've never seen The Apprentice. I've never seen him on TV. I never thought that. I mean, I didn't think about him at all. I don't want to sound like I was a snob and didn't like him, but I don't think I had much of an opinion of him. And if you had pushed me, it probably wouldn't have been wildly positive. I just didn't have much of an impression at all. He gave that Mexican rapist speech in his announcement. And the only thing I was worried about was because we've seen it over and over again with politicians. They, talk tough on immigration and then get to Washington and start pushing amnesty because that's what the donors want. Oh, no, we can't build a wall. It's too hard. Let's do something better than a wall. Whenever they say they want something better than a wall, it means one thing, no wall. And it took a week, and I realized, oh, my gosh, this guy isn't going to back down. He had asked for a few weeks earlier. My book had just come out, Adios America. He asked for a copy of it. He has been good on immigration before, but you want the details. It's all in Adios America. And he had obviously read it. That's where he got all that great stuff about Mexican rapists. A lot of my book is about the rape cultures we're bringing in from the third world and how, the rich and the powerful and the people who want cheap domestics just don't care about how our country is being changed. I mean, did you see just this? I mean, you can find it every day, but this week, Arab couple out in San Diego were arrested for holding a slave from Indonesia. Slavery. We are importing a slave culture. We are importing a rape culture. Anyway, once I saw I wouldn't back down, no, I'm pretty clearly on the record. This is my dream candidate. This is the one, at least on the issues. We've been waiting such a long time for somebody to come along and talk about putting the needs of Americans over the need of billions of third worlders who want to come live off of welfare in America and rape American girls and have slaves in America, and to quote Donald Trump, and I'm sure some of them are good people. But the point is we have to save America first. And, I think maybe there's no hope. Maybe Democrats have changed the country so much with the last 50 years of third world immigration. More than a million immigrants coming in every year for the last 50 years, 80% of them voting for the Democrats. And the Republicans don't want to do anything about that. You think that should interest you, Republicans? So I thought about a week later, 5 days later, when I realized, wow, he is not backing down. I never imagined it would be Donald Trump, but I said, this guy's going to get the nomination, and this guy's going to be the next president, with a lot of howling along the way. Now, again, it may be that no Republican can win now, but I'd just like to know so I can stop caring about politics, because once the entire country has gone the way of California, the Republicans can win nothing in California, the state that gave us, Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. It's over. No Republican can get elected statewide in California. Well, look to your future, Americans. That's it for you. I met a guy running for, governor, senator, something, a few years ago. It's just like New York, where the only people who run for state office are, nuts. Yeah, they're just obscure. They're nuts. Why would you waste your time, effort, and money running statewide in California or New York? Well, that's going to be America. Trump will let us know because because he's, wow, and look at, and everything is happening exactly as I knew it would if someone ever took America's side on immigration.
You called the shot, Ann. We're talking with Ann Coulter. And Ann, as we finish up, let me ask you a question. Another term you hear a lot, Republican Party, big tent. If there's ever been an example of a big tent at the top of, I don't want to say at the top of the ticket, but the two people battling this out right now are Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. You got pretty big differences there ideologically. Grover Norquist is really big on the speech that he has about the Republican brand and that people have to know what Republican stands for. Has that tent gotten so big that people don't know what the Republican brand is anymore? And in your mind, who represents that brand better?
Well, Trump is the one who's making it big. I mean, it's just a bad thing that's happened to the Republican Party. I'm obviously a lifelong Republican. I'm a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and as far as we can tell, I've never had a Democrat in my family, and half my family's from the South, so that's saying something. But for Pete's sake, I mean, yeah, this could be the end of the Republican Party, and we would break up for the exact same reason the Republicans broke away from the Whigs. Some people's need for cheap labor. And just don't care about the country, don't care about principle, don't care about saving the last Christian country on earth. I'd also say, I don't know if you have a lot of listeners who are Cruz supporters. I do think it's a good sign, though I don't think Cruz is actually a representation of this anti-establishment sentiment. I like that it's Trump and Cruz. I mean, if you had guessed, well, I might have guessed it. You might have guessed it. No one who was allowed to go and talk on TV would have guessed it. If you'd said this at the beginning of the race, it's not going to be Jeb. It's not going to be Rubio, the ones being pushed absolutely frantically by Fox News and other places, and all that donor money behind them. Oh, it's going to be Jeb. It's going to be Jeb. Ted Cruz's reputation, anyway, is of going to Washington, being a Tea Party candidate, sticking his finger in the establishment's eye. That is what is attractive to voters. He has come around to Trump's position only since the election on a lot of these immigration issues, building a wall, for example. He hasn't come around on whether we have to keep admitting Muslim immigrants. He was for Rubio's amnesty bill at first, and his main objection at the time, and this is all in my book, I have a paragraph on each one of the candidates running, except Trump, who saw that coming. He was probably the best on amnesty, but that was still pretty bad. His position was, let's just bring them all in legally. And he said his primary concern, this is Cruz now, his primary concern was making sure farmers and ranchers had enough cheap labor. Well, okay, that's not putting Americans first. That is being run by the donors. And I think we're kind of he voted for, he ended up voting against it, I think, but he wrote a big editorial in the Wall Street Journal on this Trans-Pacific Partnership, an absolutely job-killing trade deal. He and Paul Ryan wrote a Wall Street Journal article pushing it a year ago. It took Trump coming along and saying these are bad trade deals. They are screwing the average American. Great. And the rich keep getting richer, but can we care about our fellow Americans? So all I would say to Cruz supporters is he's not as anti-establishment as you think. I think he got to Washington and everyone hated him, but for a different reason. Because if you actually look at his votes and the things he said on these crucial issues, now he's smart, and he is smart enough to imitate Donald Trump on these issues, but I don't trust him to I don't trust him to do it. B, he's a Canadian and is definitely ineligible to be president. I mean, he's not a Canadian. He was born a United States citizen. He is not a natural-born citizen. I should be precise about that. And two, he's just not a likable person. I'm sorry, some people have it, some people don't. I don't intensely dislike him, though I'm starting to dislike some of his supporters with these Clintonian lies we're getting from them. I guess that was the one I wrote about last week.
Right. And last question, and then we're going to let you go. We appreciate your time this morning. Once again, we're talking with Ann Coulter. The big question now is we're heading into a convention. There's all sorts of people making all sorts of predictions. We're going to give you credit. You called some of the shots in your book. What do you see happening at the Republican convention as we go in and try to pick a Republican nominee?
Well, must say the desire to destroy the United States of America is wider and more powerful than I imagined. I mean, the fact that these party insiders still will not give up after, again, Trump he's bringing out millions of people who haven't voted in 30 years. I've never seen a movement like this. This is so much bigger than Obama mania, except Obama mania was being nurtured, pushed, almost created by the media. You have the entire media, including most of the conservative media, trying to crush the support for Trump. And yet his supporters, I mean, every place I go, and I travel a lot, I was telling someone the other day, whenever I watch TV, I think, oh, my gosh, all is lost. Everyone hates Trump. And then I go about my life and, run into, let's see, black lawyers, Hispanic Teamsters, makeup artists, random friends of mine, and people who aren't my friends, just people I run into every place I go. They're for Trump. I've never seen anything like this. The Republicans would be insane, even if Trump only gets 1,000 votes, and I think he will get more than that. I hope he gets 1,237, to try to give it to somebody else. No, especially after what happened in Colorado, which I write about this week in this week's column, Ted Cruz's Tracy Flick. And what they're doing in state after state. I mean, Trump wins these primaries, and then the state Republican parties say, oh, yes, but we're going to give the delegates to Cruz supporters. So, some of them may be bound to vote for Trump on the first ballot, but as soon as they're released, they're voting for Cruz. No, this is just sleazy backroom maneuvering. You think he's going to beat Hillary Clinton at sleazy backroom maneuvering? Trump keeps winning elections, and Cruz keeps winning these sleazy procedural victories. But the establishment doesn't want Cruz to have it either. So to give it to somebody else, Marco Rubio? Go back to Mitt Romney, who's already lost twice and was scared off by Jeb Bush this time?
So give me a prediction. Who do you think is going to come out with it?
I think I don't know. I hate making predictions, but I would be a lot more depressed if I hoped for a scenario where Trump doesn't get it.
Okay.
That's much harder for me to imagine than the path to victory for Trump, because, again, he keeps winning.
I'll take that answer. And once again, thanks so much for your time. I know you're busy, and just as always, talk radio gold. And I hope maybe you can find some time to get on here with Henry, because I would love to hear you two go at it on this topic.
I would love to.
And maybe
I
we
would
can.
love to. I think I can talk him out of it.
You're very persuasive. You might. Ann Coulter, thanks so much, folks. You heard her mention a lot of those columns. They're on AnnCoulter.com, as well as access to not just her latest book, Adios of America, but to all her books that she's written. And thanks again, and hopefully we'll be talking again real soon.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you again, Doug. Bye-bye.
Bye.